This is my Facebook, and this is being recorded Saturday, June the 5th. And here it begins with my darling. Love is like sunshine. We are shining on you. One of the few things I have of Katharine's handwriting and her little symbols of the shining sun. I called her my sunshine. And this is a very important one. I have it stuck to the front of my computer now. Here it is. Life that is rich and happy is one that's fulfilling its possibilities through creative linkages with reality. This comes from the Mature Mind. It's an excellent book, one of my favorites. This is a great one that I've always enjoyed. This is like my mind is trying to connect all of the loose connectors there, putting it all together. And from China, Lin Xiangying. He was a Chinese poet, a love poet, one of the few there. And this was always one of my favorite. My God, for a minute there, it suddenly all made sense. This is INTJ. I'm talking MBTI now, Myers-Briggs type indicator. And a perfect meme for university. Go into the machine and slot down. And for the sheeples, stop. You don't have to be a sheep. Indeed. And then this is Chile. Santiago, where I lived for about a year and a half. And one of my sites that I put up, resource for your source. And I still feel that way, hopefully, for at least some people. Home page, coaching website, resource for your source. Everyone has untapped potential. Go from what's wrong to what's strong. And this is a favorite meme of mine, the powers that shouldn't be, the New World Order, apes, alpha apes with their suits and their guns. And here's me, jack of all trades, crazy, everything flying away, a little bit of everything. Lost Links, this is, I started up with my Chilean friend here, and my affective neuroscience, Jake Pangsept, was good enough to stand by me and actually allow me to use his words when I advertised. Unfortunately, I didn't get the startup money to continue it. Liberty Lives Here. This is the friends on the Liberty Me channel. Excellent. And this is my favorite quote, perhaps, of all that I think really expresses me. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. In all my life, I have tried to be that. Here's some few quotes here. What humans must be, they can be. This drive I call self-actualization. That's my version of Maslow's, which was Abraham wrote, what humans can be, they must be. This need we call self-actualization. And another favorite of mine from the one of the Gospels, the mystical ones. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. How to find the courage to disappoint your family, to be true to yourself. This is to my Chinese friends. They really need to understand this. And some memes I put together here, Jack in the Box, and one of my favorite videos by Charlie Chaplin, the great dictator. And this meme is great. It's hard to see maybe, but there's a person behind bars, and those bars are actually keys. And all of these people are looking down at their feet while over their head are dangling keys to the locked door. And that's what it's like for most people. And a favorite quote of mine from Kant, enlightenment is man's leaving a self-caused immaturity. Immaturity is the incapacity to use one's intelligence without the guidance of another. Such immaturity is self-caused if it is caused by lack of intelligence, not caused rather by lack of intelligence, but by lack of determination and courage to use one's intelligence without being guided by another. Sapere have the courage to use your own intelligence is therefore the motto of the Enlightenment. Great ones. And there's Katharine and I, two halves that made a whole. This was taken in 1990 in Australia. And Katharine and I in California, 1992 at Bob's Big Boy. And she was the love of my life, my other half. And Rainer Rilke, famous and favorite poet. Life, a sexually transmitted terminal condition. So true. Most people don't understand that. And a lovely painting from one of my Chinese friends, Ada. Loss is the door to life. You will need to open it and walk through to link your separate self to others. When loss makes its message clear to you, you will do this because there's no other way to live but through your loss. Loss is the great test. The lesson is care, also known as love. And she's a lovely, it's maybe a little hard to see, but that's a woman pregnant with the butterfly out there. And here's a picture of New Zealand. I think before I came there, maybe I was in Chile. I was thinking of coming here, and this is one of my favorite memes that you can see there. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. No, I guess I can't. But you can see this is an oak, a little seed, a little maple flyer. We call it a winged seed. And inside there's a little baby, like the fetus. And it's a beautiful symbol for children, a seed to be grown, a mind to be known, a life to be owned. Your when is how. Your when is now, your how is who. Am I? Into who I am. Form, inform, transform, versus form, conform, deform. Children growing their own way. This is my parent effectiveness training. The seed into the flower. Lovely. And the grief, the loss. What really matters, emotional security through intimate relationships of responsible freedom. Everyone thinks about financial security. How many think about what is actually most and more important, emotional security? And a young lady there, and a man grieving, and the young child reaching out for its mother. And a beautiful quote by Bucky: "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." And I've tried to do that all my life. To make responsibly free individual the goal of people to get free of the cage that they were born into. And this is quite a meme here. You're not Christians, you're not Jews, you're not Muslims, and you certainly aren't atheists. You'll have the same God, and its name is government. This is from Larkin Rose, a favorite. And Epicurus, one of perhaps my most favorite ancient philosopher. Of all the means which wisdom acquires to ensure happiness throughout the whole of life, by far the most important is friendship. And one of my great friends, Michel de Montaigne, I quote others only in order to better express myself, and that's what I'm doing now. Yes, no, we contain that in Katharine. There's a photo pastiche I made up from death to love, losing a wife and gaining a new life. And there's that Christian bloodthirsty God, the sacrifice from abuse of parents to children, demanding the child be slain, and that's always the case. And this is the circuit I want to break with my parent effectiveness training. No nations, no borders, no gods, no masters. That's right. Responsible personal freedom, characteristics of a mature adult. And this is from Yalom, an American psychotherapist, existential, and it's not easy to live every moment wholly aware of death. It's like trying to stare the sun in the face. You can only stand so much of it. And there's my second wife, Elaine, my darling. She died in my arms in 1989 from cancer. My first wife had died. My second was Katharine, who was my other half. And this is a great quote: "You are a slave. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage." This is from the film, what's the name of it? I'm trying to think. I can't think of it right now, but you know the one. Actualize your freedom, responsible freedom. And a lovely quote by Emma Goldstein: "Anarchism is the only philosophy which brings to man the consciousness of himself, which maintains that God, the state, and society are non-existent, that their promises are null and void, since they can be fulfilled only through man's subordination Anarchism is therefore the teacher of the unity of life, not merely in nature, but in man. Freedom from in order to have freedom for. Many adults lack freedom not so much because someone has stolen it from them, rather because they have thrown it away. Thomas Saz. So your first task is to grit free from what is living you, owning you, controlling you, so you can live your own. And here's Katharine when she was quite young and even younger here in Australia. And these are 3 of her watercolor paintings that I love so much. This was our whole great love. And a favorite philosopher, Spinoza. A free man thinks about death, but his wisdom is in reflections about life, not death. The lesson of loss. And again, a triptych of Katharine. And again, she and I here under Bob's, and this is in our garden. And a perfect meme for the 2-party illusion, the left and the right, you're still going to the slaughterhouse. And Santayana, one of my favorite naturalist philosophers. My atheism, like that of Spinoza, is true piety towards the universe and denies only gods fashioned by men in their own image to be servants of their human interests. And I love this photo painting, the drop splashing back into the heart. Auckland, New Zealand, Partners for Life Couples Meetup. This is one of my meetups I held. And this is a favorite painting, actually etching by, trying to think of his name, Goya, from his Capriccios. And this is the dream of reason releases monsters into the air. So true. We have the primitives returning to their various mushrooms and psychedelics, believing that this is going to free them of their self. U.S. war crime, North Korea won't forget. Unfortunately, the history books don't teach the truth of history, and the American government killed something like 3 million Koreans, North Koreans. Horrible. One of the 2 quotes that I have for a definition of responsible freedom: freedom is the will to be responsible to ourselves. Friedrich Nietzsche. The other one to complete this is from John Acton, Lord Acton, and that is, liberty is the prevention of control by others, spiritual anarchy. And one of my favorite, Robert Lefebvre, government is a disease masquerading as its own cure. And here's one of my favorite books. This was, I think, published in 1949. It was a bestseller. It's hardly ever read now, but it should be. The Mature Mind by H.A. Overstreet. Absolutely stunning, great book. And here's the Goya quote: "The sleep of reason creates monsters." Has anarchy ever been tried? This is from Herbert, can't read his name here. This call to common question contains a logical fallacy. Anarchy cannot be tried. Anarchy is not social or political system. Anarchy is the fundamental state of nature into which you are born. Anarchy exists every single time you voluntarily enact with other people. Anarchy factually informs the vast majority of your daily activities, even in today's mad world. Beautiful quote. Love and death are the great gifts that are given to us. Mostly they are passed on unopened. So true from Rilke. And here's one from Will Durant, one of my favorite historians. Philosophy is harmonized knowledge, making a harmonious life. It is self-discipline, which lifts us to serenity and freedom. Knowledge is power, but only wisdom is liberty. The oceanic feeling, here's the child at the breast, the mystic infant and infinite, and infantry. We are all one. For the Chesser, for the infant, everything is part of the self. For the truly adult, that is the fully developed human being, self is a part of everything. For me, the typical spiritual mystic is like the infant at the breast. In Time magazine to show you we were all going to die freezing from the cold instead of boiling from the heat. Robert Lefebvre, and again, another great quote: if men are good, you don't need government. If men are evil or ambivalent, you don't dare have one. Perfect. And again, Spinoza, only free men are thoroughly grateful one to another. So true. Here's my free friend symbol. So painting that I love, the heart lamp. And have mine will travel. my Free Friends community that I still would love to put into place. I'm trying here. We have a little household. There's only 3 of us now, with my other 2 free friends back to China. Free Friends, creating a community of care. Friend and freedom share the same etymological root, which means do not be in bondage into love. Hence I claim responsible freedom is love. Or Sting sang it, if you love somebody, set them free. Perfect. Here's Katharine as a little one, and here she is. This was, I think, actually after her cancer announced itself. We always had potted flowers out on our balcony, and there she is, a wonderful woman that I loved and love still so much. I go against Buddha here. The root of suffering is not attachment, it's non-attachment. We have a separate self that we always want to deny and try to get rid of, but the only way, as a humanist, as a rationalist, as a voluntarist, is to be responsible for that separate self and build bridges. Jake Panksepp, 7 primary process brains. He was my friend. He and I exchanged emails. He's a very famous affective neuroscience. And this is such a wonderful model that I hope more people will understand, because it really gives meaning to something like panic attacks that I suffered from the loss of, especially going on from Katharine. But the brains, the lowest one, at the beginning one, it doesn't quite show it in the right order here, is seeking. And then rage comes next, in which seeking is positive. It's the foundational one. It's the driving into the environment. Rage is when we're frustrated, negative. Fear, when we fear to be killed, negative, obviously. The next one that comes after that would be lust, sex, which is positive. Then comes the care brain, positive, where we want to care for others. When we lose that, we're cut off, loss from our connection with our loved ones. We go into the panic loss brain, negative. And finally, the play one, the 7th one, which is the positive. And here is Jake here. And it said, I thank you for creating a wonderful service. You are a real soul saver in trying to facilitate positive connections. I'm glad to hear you wisely navigated your own painful journey of the soul. Very best wishes with your important endeavors, Jake Panksepp, effective neuroscientist. And this was my lost links that I tried to start up. Couldn't get the money for it. Favorite quote about vulnerability is not weakness. It is, in fact, the birthplace of connection and the path to feeling of worthiness. Wonderful. Love heals the wound it makes. This is a wonderful song by Eva Cassidy. All hearts that break are put back together again. Time is a healer, because love heals the wound it makes, yes. And one of my favorite quotes on love, and one of my favorite philosophers on love and freedom as well, even though he was a socialist, most of him was fairly good. In spite of the deep-seated craving for love, almost everything else is considered to be more important than love. Success, prestige, money, power, almost all our energy is used for the learning of how to achieve these aims, and almost none to learn the art of loving. So true. Preparing for love. I put this up, love maturity quiz for singles and couples. I can never get too good a response from whatever I try to do, but here we are. How self-actualized are you? Take the free self-actualization quiz and find out. And here's from my page, Pairing Today, Once Half, Now Whole, Katharine and I in the Garden. And here's the myth of the Greek myth of the separate. Once was a proto-human being, 2 halves, male and female. Zeus split them in half, and ever since then they were crying out for their half. And Katharine and I, she was my other half, I was hers. We made a whole great love together. And again from Jake there, and this is one on my page, my resource.com. Reach out to intimacy, care and be cared for. Take this from one of the movies there when they were cut, their life cord is cut and they were drifting in the universe. That's what it feels like when you're not connected. And here's a good meme, a so-called grown-up businessman, human maturity, sapere, grow up, get free, be responsible for your freedom. Enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-incurred immaturity indeed. And here's some Chinese poems I translated and wrote myself. Happy Mid-Autumn Moon Festival from Jack in Beijing and Ningbo, now in Auckland. This is one of my favorite holidays in China. And this is Epicurus teaching on the sea and in the garden, beautiful. And this is a lovely model of the, I can't remember the name of him now, it escapes me, but the cycle of renewal. And we go from a questioning ourselves into cocooning, breaking free of the cocoon and reestablishing ourselves. And these are some of my favorite quotes on real wisdom. A person remains wise as long as he searches for wisdom. As soon as he thinks he has found it, he becomes a fool. How much easier is self-sacrifice than self-realization, Eric Hoffer. Wisdom is knowing the difference between the ripe and the rotten. That's me. No one rules if no one obeys. Indeed. And this comes from Choice Theory, a good model by William Glasser. I took some of the courses and got accredited in this one. One of my favorite ones, Kath and I in our garden on our bench, pairing for life, two hearts under one house. And there's William Glasser's Choice Theory that I took and I still use. It's a great system. As you can see here, 7 caring habits: supporting, encouraging, listening, accepting, trusting, respecting, negotiating differences rather than criticizing, blaming, complaining, nagging, threatening, punishing, bribing, or rewarding to control. And here we are growing our great love in the garden of life. And this credo here comes from Thomas, who's one of my favorites. And a shot I took in my park where I used to live, and I used to go through here every day to go to work, to teach English at school at Seafield, or just would wander through it. Lovely shot. This is a great, really meaningful meme. Get a job, go to work, get married, have children, follow fashion, act normal, walk the pavement, watch TV, obey the law, save your old age. Now repeat after me, I am free. That's the herd indeed. This is really a great summation of what a mature individual is. You can't really read it here, but again, I quote Eustace Chester, "For the infant, everything is part of the self. For the truly adult, that is fully developed human being, self is a part of everything." And here's my epitaph. Death changes the meaning of love and life. Katharine and I together. Nothing to conceal, nothing to reveal, just reality with which to deal. Love is the supreme valuing act of intimately and intensely caring for a person according to their capacity for living a life of personal, responsible freedom. Other half, where are you? Katharine gone. One of the wonderful trees they have in Auckland. It's one of my favorite cities for trees. Last tree telling its many armed tales, the sun caught within. And again, more of that. A knot framed in green. Then Yu Tang, the famous and favorite Chinese philosopher that lived in the U.S., Importance of Living, one of my favorite books. A great quote by Plato: "We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light." One day, belief in the God of government will be abandoned, and wars will not be celebrated but exposed as the madness of the few enacted by the many. Let the light in, I said. And I turned Donne's poem phrase around. No man is an island. I say every person is an island. Eyes, land. Therefore, build your bridges to other. Be responsible for your freedom. This is a poem I made up, a visual. It's hard to see here, but I put it: plan, organize, execute, monitor, a visual map to help you cover all areas of planning. I created this about 12 years ago. So many things done, and I just wish more people could get aware of them. But before I die, maybe more people will know about this life that I've created. Ningbo full moon, this huge balloon of borrowed light, lets go of our hold, floats free, hear its light hiss as it rises, where the full moon holds every heavy human breath ever breathed here on earth, and leaks with the shining life of death. What you see by is the soft light, continually leaving the hard dark alone, and mist as it rises. Freedom, free each, rhymes with teach, superiority, dare to know. Freedom, who controls you? Who is you? To the degree you do not control yourself, someone or something else will. Your life is the answer to these two questions. Who is this you acting itself out moment by moment? Who is in control of whatever is acting out as you? You are only as free as you take the responsibility to be. The Great Love, a letter poem written by me on the coming marriage to Katharine. And I wrote this in 93, sent it to her when I proposed, and she finally accepted. She died in my arms from terminal cancer in December 1996. Here's a wonderful quote from Lewis Mumford, a favorite historian, cultural critic. Primitive man mistakenly treats things as if they were persons, but modern man treats persons as if they were things, and that is perhaps an even more dangerous superstition. Lewis Mumford. Measuring maturity, self-actualization coach. And this is my climbing Mount Maslow to the peak of self-actualization. This is a meme I put together using the word of maturity, of self-actualization rather than enlightenment, of self-realization as the measurement for the attainment of wisdom. I find more wisdom in the book The Mature Mind by H.A. Overstreet than in any of the books by Rajneesh Osha. As a humantheist, no gods but the fallible human, what I am seeking is persons, not gods. This is a statue of, I can't remember the name of it, but as I said here, the hole in the middle of my hole. Hole, H-O-L-E, hole, W-O-L-E. This is one of the best artistic expressions of what it's like to have lost your other half. Very true. And the stump of pain, this is what it feels like. All thought turns to touch, which returns to pain, recoils, screams, and runs away into the night, taking the last of the light and more than half of your life. You remain fixed in the immense mansion of pain. There are many doors, but there's only one empty room filled with truth, so you stay. Katharine and Jack, there we are. From and for Katharine, my other half. Chapter 1 of my autobiography, The Lesson of Loss. And this is one of her watercolor painters. I call it the Bowl of Joy. And here's a good meme on the typical totalitarian doctrinaire indoctrination camp teachers. I expect you all to be independent, innovative, critical thinkers who will do exactly as I say. Indeed, reach out to intimacy, understanding panic attacks. You can do this through Jake Panksepp, one of the best books on voluntarism, free market anarchism, The Market for Liberty. Unbelievably good book, written in the 70s. Beautiful moments. I put this out for a New Year's resolution from Free Friends here. And Rainer Maria Rilke, a favorite poet. This is the departure of the prodigal son, to go forth now from all entanglement that is ours and not ours, that like water in an old well reflects us in fragment, distorts what we are, from all that clings like burrs and brambles, to go forth and see for once. Erich Fromm, I mentioned him before. Man is the only animal for whom his own existence is a problem which he has to solve. The separate self, accepting the reality of responsible freedom. Love is the link, loss is the motivator. This awareness of the self as a separate entity, the awareness of our own short lifespan, of our aloneness and separateness, would drive us insane. Could we not liberate ourselves from this prison, reach out and unite ourselves with others? Indeed. And this is the one I quoted before from Plato. My voice is going. You'd better, this is saying about learning about how to deal with his anxiety when he takes the psychotropic drugs. They're going to give you even worse side effects than you have now. Because death is necessary to make life sufficient. Mortal motivation, mortality is morality. We must develop a voluntary acceptance of the obligatory. Both Seneca and Rank are saying the same thing. We must live in the world on the world's terms. Necessity will have its way with us, and we waste energy and force denying it. Indeed, the importance of living, most dangerous superstition of the best of the voluntarist anarchists, by Larkin Rose. One cannot believe in authority and be free, because accepting the myth of government is accepting one's own obligation to obey a master indeed. And here's a great meme by Harry Brown, one of my favorite libertarians. The government is good at one thing. It knows how to break your legs and hand you a crutch and say, see, if it weren't for the government, you wouldn't be able to walk. Indeed. They actually had called slavery, at one time, when the early psychiatrists said it was, they made it a mental disease to try to escape from slavery. And here's a good one. One of the most beautiful qualities of true friendship is to understand and be understood. How self-actualized are you climbing to the peak of Mount Maslow? What is love? There's Katharine and I at Bob's. And a good one here. This is Self-Disclosure, Sidney Jorrell, I think it's Jorrell, yeah. Life lived with, through, and out of loss. Birds born in a cage think flying is an illness. Jodorowsky, the filmmaker, and I love this one. Well, the birds in the trees know something we can't see because we know we were born to be free. May 19, 2019, I put this in during our lockdown. This was, Van Morrison was the only one that first came out to protest, still one of the very few. John Lennon. I love this one. Imagine there's no countries, it isn't hard to do, nothing to kill or die for, and no religions to do. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say, I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one, each one as an individual. The Art of Loving, one of my favorite books. Uniduality or dual unity. The Art of Loving. Love is union under the condition of preserving one's own integrity, one's individuality. Love is an active power in man, a power which breaks through the walls which separate man from his fellow men, which unite him with others. Beautiful quote. And again, one of my favorite libertarian, one of the few psychiatrists, this is Thomas Oz. Aided and abetted by corrupt analysts, patients who have nothing better to do with their lives often use the psychoanalytic situation to transform insignificant childhood hurts into private shrines at which they worship unceasingly the enormity of the offenses committed against them. This solution is immensely flattering to the patients, as are all forms of unmerited self-aggrandizement. It is immensely profitable for the analyst, as are all forms pandering to people's vanity, and it is often immensely unpleasant. And I can't read the rest of it, but it's perfect, yeah. And there's a huge industry supporting this victim class, and I think it needs to be challenged. It absolutely does. And there's a pastiche of Katharine's 3 watercolors, and there she is in front of her trailer in Australia. And here's my alpha ape. Obedience to the alpha ape. We see ghosts dance because of specific universal experiences occurring in the development of the human animal. We bring from each family nurtured past a mode of response to the supposed stimulus, the nature of the unknown being a projected, not perceived. Supernatural revelation is misapprehended information about the mind itself, which has forgotten the individual formative history of its longings. The authoritarian personality is actually seeking not comprehension of self and world, but group-confirmed fantasies of revelation, charisma, godlike projected parents, and the soul. Weston LeBaire from the Ghost Dance. This is so true if people could just understand this. As gene mean machines, we are hardwired and programmed to act as directed by our DNA dictator, the source of the sacred and the pattern giver of the universal act, human act of sacrifice. While most persons do what most persons do unwittingly from birth to death is sacrifice their minds to and for the various representatives of the DNA dictator, first and foremost as the family, then as the clan, tribe, culture, God, civilization, nature, ideology, world government, up the pyramidal hierarchy of political and priestly power. It is this driver, director, dictator that is the answer to the enigma that anarcho-libertarians are so unable to respond to and are so confused about why 98% of the population refuses the obvious truth that any government or God is an unnecessary evil, is that it is the codependent family that is the matrix, that etymologically the mother principle out of which the dependent family, that is the matrix out of which the human species has evolved. I mean, the all-powerful father, the all-forgiving mother, and the helpless infant. And here's a great book by Ronald Siegel, Intoxication, Poisoning the Mind. Psychedelics do that. And of course, the spiritual ones don't want to know this, but I think they do. And I have taken acid. I have been enlightened, died, came out the other side, etc. But thank goodness I chose to be human and returned to be responsible for my my separate self, rather, and the acceptance of death. The Meaning of Mind, a great book by Thomas Oz. I invite all to read it. Absence is to love what wind is to fire. It extinguishes the small and it enkindles the great. This is the cover of the Valentine's card that Katharine sent to me once I proposed to her when she was in Australia. I was still in America. I went back to marry her in 1993. What I wrote to Katharine when I finally became responsible for my freedom, this was late 1992. I'm thinking about my commitment to you as one that is made to the best of myself. I must watch myself that I really attend to and work at our relationship as much or more than anything else I do. This is the opportunity of my lifetime to come into my prime by using you. And here's what the book cover starts with. Love is like sunshine. We are shining on you. I love this. I have this, makes the book cover of this book. Appropriate sunrise photo following my post below on Katharine. I called her my sunshine. I still have a sticky note she wrote this on. Love is like sunshine. We are shining on you. Here's a photo of it. Complete Guide to Relieving Cancer Pain and Suffering. This is the book that Katharine and I both used when we found it in 1996, a couple of months before she died. The Complete Guide to Relieving Cancer Pain and Suffering. And I gave it to my nephew, Nick. Here is the one best book you will need to take control of your situation. Nicky died from cancer very quickly a couple of years ago. He was my nephew. He was a criminal, and in his later years finally got straight. And this is one of the most fortuitous, wonderful, serendipitous photos I've ever taken. Two gulls leaning on each other. Each actually has only one leg, believe it or not, pairing for life. Two gulls, two legs, interdependent. Seagulls are monogamous creatures that mate for life and rarely divorced. This is a first-time photo for me. I saw a pair of gulls on Harborside Dock, each standing on one leg, which I have seen many times, but upon closer inspection, view the photo, each of them had only one leg. They seemed to be leaning on each other. That was Katharine and I. Here's my classroom at Seafield. This is after I think we had moved. Was it one? No, this was well, actually the second class. I taught at three different buildings for Seafield. This is the second longest one I taught in, before they fired me, by the way, because I went against the lockdown. That's a long story. Good morning, Amsterdam, where I will be soon. This is looking out from my apartment in the Princeton Towers, looking to the east onto Rangitoto Island, I think it's called, over the University of Auckland. And I was up on the 17th floor, wonderful view, as you can see here, just before I left to go to Amsterdam to get some psychedelic psilocybin. I was hoping to be able to correct my mind and get some relief from the panic that I always had and anxiety. Long story. And here's up in the tower. This is one of the Sky Tower photos. I used to take the Seafield cruise here every couple of months on this cruise. Here's again, Seafield Gang of Good at the Sea Tower, July 19th, 2019. Here's the ship from Chile, the Esmeralda. I love this. This is beautiful. Remember, I lived in Chile. Here's my little DYU electric folding mini bike. Cute. This is where I used to go at Harborside all the time. Harborside grill on the waters, you can see here. Have my coffee almost every day before the shutdown. And here I am leaving on the window, going to fly to Amsterdam. Yep, there I am looking out. Here was my first apartment in Amsterdam. I stayed for a week there. This is one of my, I was up here with one of the rooms up here with the window out here down below, light above. It was wonderful. And here's a houseboat on the lake. I called it Amsterbless instead of Amsterdam, Amsterbless. This is where I did a trip on a drug to help me try to get it. Didn't really do much good, but here's Amsterbless. I said, where else can you see one family bike with two kids, a dog, and a mom? I loved Amsterbless. Here I am in Amsterbless, Blueberry Cheesecake Ice Bar and a cappuccino, August 1st. And here's taking a shot of a houseboat on the narrow canals. And here I am in front of the Van Gogh Museum, and here's a Dutch sailor sanding his big pole, Auckland City of Sails. And here I am, my beach house. This was a lovely one. The view tastefully decorated in Greek Isle, white with sea seashores, cells, peaceful abode. Oh, Antwerp, that's right, good old Airbnb Antwerp. This is wonderful. Here it was, a selfie at the Seine in Paris, France, and here, what address. This is me with the Eiffel Tower And here's my Mona Lisa. We had to wait in line. We only had 30 seconds. There she is, the Mona Lisa I caught among the tourist crush and long line up and down many levels of view for 30 seconds. The real thing, that serene smile I know intimately, for it was Katharine's smile of gentle sunshine beyond shadows, where she poemed it. Beauty, fun, logic, serenity, truth. That is the meaning of Mona Lisa's smile to me. Indeed. And there I am with, I pass by this almost every day to work with the Sky Tower. And I take my electric bike or walk down this way. And here's the harbor side where I used to walk almost every day. Harbor side, the light breaking through. And this was around the area where I used to live in Auckland. And here's Thoughts for the Silent Night. This is a Chinese poem, and one of mine written for thousands of years. The Chinese people have related to the vicissitudes of life to the changes of the moon as it waxes and wanes. I've always loved the moon. I always can see it in the sky whenever I turn up in the afternoon, and my eyes always find it. Out the bus window to Takapuna Beach Cafe. When I lived in town, I would go to Takapuna Beach Cafe. Now I live near there. I take my electric bike there every day around 4:30 to 6 when it closes. And a double rainbow. This is out from the probably either the hotel, the Hilton Hotel where I used to stay, or the Harborside Cafe. And here's the Harborside Cafe when we had rain and sunshine, and you can see there's Katharine thinking of her. And again, at the Harborside, a double rainbow again, and more from the Sky Yacht. And we used to have a lot of cruise ships come in until the stupidity of the COVID 1984 came and they banned them all. And here's my Albert Park, where I used to go almost every day. Flowers all the time. I loved it there. Walked. Sometimes I would walk 3 o'clock in the morning when my anxiety was bad. And beautiful cherry blossoms there. Again, Albert Park, more Albert Park, more Albert Park. Daily I would walk through more Albert Park and more Albert Park, the blossom in hand, more Albert Park. And off the bridge, I was going on the bus, and this is the shore showing the harbor and the Sky Tower. That's where I used to be with the hotel. I would sit and watch. And here's the church nearby where I used to live. And again, the harbor and more cruise ships, big one. Here's the reaching, growing from the ground up. The trees in Auckland are magnificent and marvelous. And here it's for the birds. I used to sit here in the Domain Park Cafe where I used to go a lot to, nearby where I used to live, take my electric bike. And here's the island in Takapuna Beach, lovely shot. Now I live right near this, so I see this every day out my window, actually. I can see it out my window where I'm sitting right now at night. The rose explosion of beauty. I always think of Rilke. There's so much sleep behind so many closed eyelids. A yellow explosion. I think of yellow as Katharine's flower. And here's my dear free friend, Ray, one of my first free friend probably in New Zealand. Ray, there you are, my friend. Everybody loves Raymond. This was a TV show we used to kid. He reaches out for the world as do the tree with their many arms. And there's a painter in Albert Park, and there's a perfect arc of a rainbow out my window where I used to live in the Princeton Towers. And here's the Winter Garden over in Domain Park where I used to go all the time as well. Again, more park, and this is when I was doing my first parent effectiveness training, father and daughter under the tree of life in the light. Again, more Parnell Rose Garden. This is nearby where I used to live, and is still growing out, if not up, fallen tree, but still growing, perhaps like me after Katharine. And a shot out toward the Auckland Bridge. And here's, again, this is down near Domain Park, and these marvelous trees. Look at this, all the arms. And here's my first crew from my parent effectiveness training. This is my Chinese friend and a Maori woman, and he got very angry at me after he took the second online course, but because we were on the lockdown, we had an online one when we met, and I was against the lockdown and he was for it. And he got upset with me, and he's never really come back to reconnect, unfortunately. But yeah, this was the first graduation with my two first graduating students. So congratulations to you both. And the basic concept is forming a deep mutual bond with another is the first imperative of the human species. As Bowlby saw it, life is at best essentially a series of excursions from the safety of a secure relationships out into the uncertainty of the greater world. Excerpt from The Love Sense, The Revolutionary New Science of Romantic Relationships by Sue Johnson. And this is, you can see here, an upside down cart with lights coming out of it. And here's Looking Out of Plato's Cave, Responsibly Free. This was a fortification. They used to have the guns built here in Auckland, and I thought a perfect metaphor. There's my happy hour. Okay, pull all weapons, plug all weapons of violence and turn them into tools of peace. This is me putting a plug in the war cannons. Silo Park, New Year. This is down on the beach. You can see Auckland Bridge. I used to electric bike around there all the time. Almost full moon at Harborside with the Viking Ocean liner berth. I go down almost every day and walk around there to keep myself company. And here's a favorite quote by Rudyard Kipling, often attributed to Nietzsche, but no, it's by him. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Indeed, rule and own yourself, the essence of autarky, anarchy, voluntarism. Again, Harborside. And again, this was from my parent effectiveness training, Discover How to Escape from the 5 Biggest Parenting Traps. Again, my Hilton Cafe during Half Moon. And Takapuna Beach, now where I live. This is a series of them looking out to the island, Rangitoto Island, February 2, 2020. Wake me when it's time. This was nearby where I used to live in the Princeton Towers, the Maori sort of statue. And there's the Sky Tower from Victoria Park this time. Hilton, one waterfront. And again, the cruise liners that used to come in before the lockdown. And there's a bougainvillea leaf from my notebook nearly 30 years ago, one of my many me's, the Observer poet on Katharine about a year after we met. Picture is a bougainvillea bract petal blown my way as ever by chance today, sitting at the Hilton alone, contemplating the temple etymology sacred space that Kath and I created as our relationship, our only God, our only good. And there's my Hilton. And there's my classroom. This was the last school when we moved to just after and when the lockdown came and when they fired me just a couple of days before I was due to be made redundant because I protested against the lockdown. Here's the sunset sail. There we go. And trees reaching up Domain Park again, one of my favorites. And here's Katharine and I, the partnership of life, 2 hearts under one house, 2 equal parts creating a whole great love. Katharine and I wrote our marriage ceremony that took place in Maryborough, Queensland, Australia, intentionally and symbolically on July 4th, 1993, America's Independence Day that we called our Interdependence Day. And here's looking out from my alcove at Harborside about a world that will have an opportunity to learn the lesson of loss. There's my scooter. This was just when it was closing down, March the 22. I think the next day would have been the full lockdown had come in. And here's Silo Park with Raymond and Dennis, 2 of my Chinese free friends, Raymond especially. And here's perfect portraits of the Chinese presidents, would-be rulers with their heads of the coronavirus. And here's Trump, both stupid, deadly dictators from their own countries, and the beauty of the Sky Tower. And again, Domain Park will give us moon. If you can't trust people with freedom, how can you trust people with power? The perfect quote to get people to understand. And again, here's Nietzsche's quote, freedom is the will to be responsible for ourselves. Freedom word no one is talking about. Freedom. How easily we have given it away to the government due to the fear of the virus. No one is talking about our loss of freedom. Why? Many adults lack freedom, not so much because someone has stolen it from them as because they have thrown it away, and that's what most people have done. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. From Hendricks. Perfect. Robert Higgs. Rulers have often used fear of themselves and of other dangers known and unknown to terrorize the people and convince them that they were incapable of providing the security that only the state can provide. Robert Higgs. Indeed. And again, George Carlin, my favorite comedian. Before they give you a lethal injection, they swab your arm with alcohol. It's true. Well, they don't want to get you an infection. And you can see their point. They don't want some guy to go to hell and be sick. Perfect. Here's again my Heartland, beautiful painting that I love so much. And you can see the heart there. It's beautiful. Where liberty dwells, there is my country, Benjamin Franklin. I call it the Heartland of Free Friends. Join me? Wolf, wait. Listen to me. We don't have to be just sheep. Indeed. Get a job, go to work. Now repeat after me, I'm free. Perfect meme here, one of the best. When government does it, enhanced interrogation, meaning when anybody else does it, torture. No knock raids, breaking and entering. Taxation, armed robbery. State arrest, you do it, kidnapping. State indefinite detention, you holding hostage. Education, indoctrination. Making a campaign promise, lying. Campaign contribution, bribery. Defense operation, aggression. Military occupation, land theft. Security pat-down, sexual assault. National security, spying on neighbors. Can't see the rest of it there, but perfect meme. And there I am in China. This would have been about 2006, just after I was married to my third wife, Helene. And you can see the Great Wall, and there I am. Themes of Jack, biopsies of his many me's. These are some of the my short couple line philosophy poems. Separate, free, responsible, mortal, moral. No escape from your physical container, your body. Your only choice is to accept reality and deal truthfully with it, or refuse and project your savior fantasies called God, government, or guru upon reality to try to cover reality up or hide from it. Indeed. And thinking respect for authority is the greatest enemy of truth. I only wish Einstein would have known that. Unfortunately, there was a part of him that was great. Another half of him was Zionist and not so great. But I'm talking about parent effectiveness training here, the anti-authoritarian peaceful parenting way. I believe that the pet principles against authoritarian parenting also apply to the authoritarian coercive control being used by the New Zealand government and all others except Sweden now regarding the coronavirus lockdown. We cannot be true pet parents and believe in the lockdown. And of course, this is where I alienated most of the people that graduated from the first course, especially my Chinese friend that was so close to me until I declared myself against the lockdown. And he, of course, was indoctrinated with belief in the God of government. Participatory fascism, the slippery slope. There is no way that you can contain government. If you give them a little, they will take it all. So we were pushed into that non-participatory dictatorship, as they called it. And here's the Milgram experiment. Never forget that 2/3 of people would shock you to death just because someone in charge told them it was for a good reason. Now, since I read this, the major one here is, now for me, is Lloyd DeMoss. And he points out the fact, really what it is, people go into what he calls their trance alter others. Because of the child abuse that most of us suffer from our parenthood, luckily I didn't. I was lucky enough not to do that. Or my mother, I guess, she died when I was 3. But he makes the point that when we obey, we're going into this trance alter other, where we hate and love our mothers or who abused us or our fathers. So that's very, very true. And I said the etymology of dictator is one who speaks, who dictates certain orders that must be obeyed under penalty of punishment if not obeyed. One young woman, I'm meaning now, Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, with a big mouth and protruding teeth on March the 26th, 2020, dictated to 5 million persons within several islands known as New Zealand, among other things. Persons must only leave their, this is when we had the lockdown, self-distancing, so stupid. And there's a beautiful shot of low tide in the island, and again down a dockside, and here's the Auckland Bridge where I love to just walk around. How government works: breaks your leg, sells you a wheelchair at 10 times actual cost, taxes that wheelchair, regulates your use of that wheelchair, assures you that without government you wouldn't be getting around so well. Ah, true. Sky tower red at night, it's not beautiful. Fire at the heart of the ridge, there it is. Li Shangyin and the Unnamed Lover, one of my favorite Chinese poems, and I wrote a translation of those love poems, which is the basic type that I write, with a lot of sexual imagery involved. There it is, July the 4th, 2020, 27th anniversary of Katharine and Jack, 24 years without her, still here, the presence of absence, the presence of her absence, July the 3rd, 2020. And here's a good quote from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross she wrote a lot on dying. The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that tells them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep loving concern, fills them rather with a deep compassion, gentleness, deep loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. Great quote. And July 9, 2020, Auckland Bridge lit up in a violet, beautiful light. Global impacts from the COVID-19 pandemic broken down by the world. US 3.8 trillion losses. Unbelievable. It's still going on now, over 1 year later, horribly so. July the 11th, 2020, well, not quite a year now. We're at June the 5th now, 2021. Coming to the end now. Nuclear fusion at work, the lights. Shit happens, yes. Will you clean yours up? There he is. That is the main question to the answer. Who controls you? Who is responsible for you? Your answer is parent, God, government. How about you controlling you? Possible? Why? What? Where? When? How? Who is you? Shit happens, yes. Will you clean yours up? Scenario narratives lockstep. And most of you probably don't know, but there have been about 5 to 6 actual predictive events before COVID-19 84 came about in February, March of 2020. Unbelievable. Again, a fusion. Agenda 21, all of you need to know about this. This is Agenda 21 and 2030 now. Virology Journal. Fauci said HCQ, hydroxychloroquine, was a potent inhibitor, and then, of course, they banned it. And this is a crime against humanity, and hopefully Fauci and the rest of them may be put in prison. I won't wait for it, but Hilton Free Friends meetup, and the meetup there. This is one of my favorite memes here. How it feels trying to warn people about the true nature of government. Meat packer, look over here, you gals. I see Mr. Conspiracy Theory is at it again. Right. And again, here's Milgram in his own words. I set up a simple experiment at Yale University to test how much pain an ordinary citizen would inflict on another person simply because he was ordered to by an experimental scientist. Stark authority was pitted against the subject's strongest moral imperatives against hurting others, and with the subject's ears ringing with the screams of the victims, authority won more often than not. Ordinary people simply doing their jobs and without any particular hostility on their part can become agents in a terribly destructive process. Stanley Milgram, obedience to authority. Indeed, as I said, COVID-19 84 is a huge Milgram experiment writ worldwide. New Free Friends home, Castor Bay. This is when we moved not quite a year ago, walking down with me. This is a walk Ray and I and Young and May would sometimes take. And again, low tide, low. Point of it, there's the point, and here's the roots and the branches to be climbed, a philosophical tree. And this is along the cliffs here, along Kennedy Beach, that I so much love. That moment when you realize that this, please wash your hands, this is all the washing, this is all the social distancing, the psychological warfare operation, proudly sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates, Event 201, World Economic Forum, indeed, World Health Organization, WHO, indeed. And again, the light, and again, the beautiful rocks down. I think this is in my local Castor Bay here, and this is one of my favorite quotes from the poet, Mystic Rumi. Why do you stay in prison when the door is wide open for all those obeying the governments and the coronavirus? Walk with me into the fading light of responsible freedom. There it is. And again, the island. This is from Brave New World, a remake of it just recently. Everyone belongs to everyone else. This is where the World Economic Forum wants us. This is a great meme of Orwell. Looks like you've had a bit too much to think. Thought police. I am a voluntarist, and I think you always should be one too. Thought police. There was a virus, I panic, a meme to say this is what the rulers that shouldn't be have done to our society. They burned it down to save the house. Here it is, this monster bill, Kill Gates. I just released my first of three songs, that's right, hit songs, shit songs I call them. You were born to be vaccinated, soon to be followed by my second jab, indemnify me, and the third final solution song, it's all over now, baby blue. Sorry, Dylan, I own the company now. Nice pun, if you can get the meaning of it. Life, a sexually transmitted disease which always ends in death. Mortality brings morality. Resist and end lockdowns, excellent website. Obey little, resist much. Here it is on the protest we had at the Domain Park, one of the very few. What is freedom? The will to be responsible for yourself. Sunset, Castor Bay, blossoms caught in a chain link fence. Here it is, the World Economic Forum. Give him half of what you have, but he wants you to remain poor. You should take it by force. Good meme to remind you of the divide and conquer rule for rulers. So try voluntarism. If no one obeys, no one rules. From each according to his freedom, to each according to his responsibility. Responsibly Free Manifesto. This is my own. Blooming over and beautiful. What a wonderful flower. And the scud and scum foam of the beach at Castor Bay. Double think, indeed, what's being done now by the media indoctrination and brainwashing. And if all others accepted the lie which the party imposed, if all records told the same tale, then the lie passed into history and became the truth. Orwell's understanding of the old New World Order's control of the coronavirus narrative was stunningly prescient. For example, fraud chief, first no mask, then mask, England government, coronavirus, not dangerous, then deadly, WHO, no lockdowns, lockdowns, no lockdowns, etc. Doublethink is the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind at the same time. And here was a lovely restaurant in Huntington Beach that said, the heck with you, we're going to do it anyway. Here's some more sculpture at Castor Bay, low tide, and a heart that some young people left. Beautiful. And here again is Rangitoto Island. What we are ultimately trading on the free market is the value of ourselves. Here's a favorite voluntarist, anarchist, H.L. Mencken. As democracy is perfected, the office of the president represents more and more closely the inner soul of the people. We move toward the lofty ideal. On some great and glorious day, the plain folks of the land will reach their heart's desire at last, and the White House will be adorned by a downright moron. Well, that happened, culminated absolutely with Trump and now with Biden, who is suffering from obvious brain damage. Perfect ending with him, brain damage. U.S. government, that's where it is, suffering from a completely damaged brain, dying. Beautiful indeed. Coming to the end now, 59. They are the virus, government, Bill Gates, private companies, the corporatocracy, Dan Daniels, that monster, and George Soros, and Fauci, and Merkel, and the monster from Canada, and so forth. And there's Rothschilds. Yeah, definitely. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery, Thomas Jefferson. And here's Fidel Castro. The first thing dictators do is finish free press to establish censorship. No doubt that a free press is the first enemy of dictatorship. There he is, the free man that the left liberals and stupid socialist communists love to worship, this horrible dictator that murdered so many hundreds of thousands. Here's the enemies of the people: trillionaire shadow government, billionaire disciples, Rothschild, the Windsors, the Queen, Vatican, Rockefellers, Bloomberg, Gates, Buffett, Zuckerberg, Bezos, Soros, Kissinger. Their agenda, their formula, I can't breathe, the reaction of COVID-19, economic crash, the lockdown, rights, lawlessness, media manipulation, indeed. This is it, 1984. Statism, this is one of the best memes yet. The brilliant idea that we give a small group of people the right to kidnap, steal from, and kill us so that we can be protected from the people who kidnap, steal from, and kill us. And I put, if you could reason with status, there would be no status. That's my quote. New bestseller calls out COVID-19 Corona False Alarm by Dr. Sokarit Bhakti. And here's from Brandy Vaughn, who I believe was actually murdered by the powers that shouldn't be. Medical school should be renamed pharma school. Doctors only learn to treat symptoms with drugs while ignoring the cause. Real health won't be found inside a doctor's office. Brandy Vaughn, rest in peace, darling. And one of my dear friends, Voluntarist, who started up voluntarist.com. Free friend Carl Watner, rest in peace, 1948, 2020. Fellow voluntarist Carl Watner died December the 8th. This is 2020. I exchanged email with Carl over the past year or so, and we shared his coming to terms with his terminal illness. Here is a message I received from his webpage. The great emotion I share with you, the passing of my longtime mentor and friend, Carl Watner. Finally, wanted for crimes against humanity, a prison. It's a picture of Bill Gates with a, sort of the background of his height and holding his number in front of him. He is a criminal against humanity. And here's one of my favorite philosophers I grew up on, Eric Hoffer, the longshoreman philosopher. Power corrupts the few, but weakness corrupts the many, indeed. One of my intellectual godfathers, Eric Hoffer, wrote this in the early 1950s that so accurately describes what has happened today with the virus and climate alarmism, planned and executed totalitarian takeover. The only way to predict the future is to have the power to shape the future. Those in possession of absolute power can not only prophesize, but bring to fruition their prophecy. And this is a favorite quote of mine. Of course, you can't see, but this is August Landmeister, taken in the 36 or so, a lone German refusing to raise his stiff right arm at a meeting, an open-air rally in 1936. And I have my quote from Albert Camus, and I put in his next to his mouth, which is closed, no. He has folded arms while everybody else has their right arm extended to worship the God of Hitler. And here's the quote from Albert Camus. What is a rebel? A man who says no, but whose refusal does not imply a renunciation. He is also a man who says yes from the moment he makes his first gesture of rebellion. Albert Camus. And finally, here it is. Tiffany Pointis Dover is dead. Well, we're not still sure. Actually, I think she lived. She was a nurse that fainted, and we wondered when she actually got her shot, actually fainted online. First to show us that maybe the virus vaccine was not as safe as it was touted to be. And coming to the close, there's my new electric bike that I bought recently, my new electric bike, Dragoon, and a Give Us Moon at late afternoon, Castor Bay. You can see the moon up here, discussing the stupidity of empires and emperors with Epicurus and Du Fu, while T.S. Eliot rolls up his British trousers for a brief wade in the gently spoken wavelets, December 27. From the husband of Katharine's life, a series of poems. My love, I find you inside of everyone I ask out. You gave me your death as your final gift, and I will continue to open it with the rest of my life. The end. Stay free, people. Get free. Stay free. Be responsible for your freedom. Katharine, you will always be with me until my last breath, as I was with you on your last. Be responsible for your freedom, people. Turn to voluntarism. Raise your children without violence, voluntarily. Break the cycle of violence done to you as a child, as a parent. Learn parent effectiveness training. Learn to be a voluntary parent. Break the cycle of violence. Raise children who are free and responsible for that freedom. Sapere Aude.